This video is going to demonstrate how to use Cambium Code Standard to create some dovetail joints. The demonstration project that we're going to use is the beginning of this drawer, which is a drawer front and two drawer sides joined together with a couple of dovetails, as shown here in this slightly exploded view. You'll notice that the drawer front is a little bit wider than the drawer side, and there's an offset between the bottom of the drawer front and the bottom of the drawer side. In this case, it's 1/8 of an inch. To create the cutter path file for these dovetails, I'm going to start Cambium Code from the desktop shortcut. Do a File, New. You can see the variety of cuts that are available here. I'm going to start a new half-blind dovetail. I'm going to describe the stock, which in this case is part 1 and part 2, which is shown here. Part 1 is the drawer front, part 2 is the drawer side. So I'm going to say that it is 15 by 4.5, 3/4 thick. The drawer side is 13 by 4 by 3/4 thick. I need to describe my cutter. Those parameters are shown on this help screen: diameter, blade height, overall height, and angle. So I've described my cutter. Now I need to describe the dovetail parameters, which are shown here on this help screen set. In this case, I want 1-inch wide tails that are 1/2 inch high, 1/2 inch into the part. I would like 2 of them. I would like them 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the drawer side. We have an offset between the bottom edges of these parts of 1/8 of an inch. Fit factor is explained in the directions. I'm going to enter a rather slow feed parameter, or feed rate, 80% step over increment. Clamp clearance height is the height the cutter will return to at the end of the operation. I'm going to read in a standard input file, which sets some parameters for my machine. Your machine will probably vary. Then I'm going to write the G-code file. And there it is. Here you can see that the files have been written into our directory for part 1 and for part 2. We can go and examine those files. Here's part 1, part 2. Each has a G-code file. The text that we entered into the standard introduction box is here at the beginning of the program. Some comments give you a brief description of the file. Here's the G-code. Here's the parameters that we'll go into later. At this point, we've made the G-code files necessary to join the drawer front and the drawer sides. Here you can see the pin cuts being made in the drawer front on the CNC router. You may have noticed that the G-code file that we have made for the drawer front only contains cuts for one edge of the part. Now we need to make the cuts for the other edge of the part, which are not symmetrically opposite. Simply hit the Create Mirror Parts button. Mirror cut file successfully written. We look in our directory and we see a third file added, Part 1 Mirror Cuts. Here you can see these cuts being applied to the other edge of the drawer front. These cuts are a simple reflection of the previous cuts, but in this case you haven't had to perform any special calculations to make them. Now you can see the cuts being made for part 2, the drawer side. As you can see, this requires a vertical clamping. Using Cambium code, we've managed to make the 3 G-code files necessary to join 2 drawer sides and a drawer front together using dovetails in under about 3.5 minutes. If you wanted to read these existing G-code files back into Cambium code for editing in the future or modification for a related project, you could do so by using the File Open menu pick. Cambium code also comes with a set of scripts for Google SketchUp to create part models in SketchUp from the G-code files written from Cambium code. Installing and using these scripts is shown in an additional video tutorial.